Hello, listeners. Welcome to my podcast, Soulful Growth to Success. And this is Prabhleen, your host for today. And today we have Connie Pretula, and she is a certified nutritionist and a menopause navigator. So you will get a lot of insight into how to transition into menopause and all the insightful information that you're looking for, how to navigate your way into menopause. So, hi, Connie. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Prabhleen. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to do this. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you today in our podcast, and I can't wait for this episode to air.
Well, every woman goes through it.
Yes. So, what is your personal experience with menopause?
So it hit me like boom, all of a sudden. I had no idea. In fact, I was just starting a new position. I used to work in the corporate world, so it was a brand new position with the last company I worked for. So I accepted the job, and menopause happened the next day.
Do you not mind me asking what age?
So at that time I was 48, just a few months away from my 49th birthday. And I had no idea. I literally had no idea what was happening to me. I thought maybe it was the stress of accepting a new job. I had to move from Winnipeg, where I was living, to Vancouver, learn new software. So I thought it's got to just be stress.
Yeah.
And then when it continued on, and I actually went to see my medical doctor, and he just said, I don't know, you're just getting older.
Okay. Like, what symptoms did you experience? Like, how did you first got to know that this is what you're going through?
Yeah. So the first symptom that hit me was hot flashes.
Okay.
Severe hot flashes. And then, of course, with hot flashes, typically you get the night sweats. So it's just a hot flash that happens in the night. And so that disturbs your sleep. So between the two, those were my main two symptoms. And as I say, I just thought I was stressed or maybe something. Here's the funny thing. Some of the family members on my mom's side of the family have thyroid issues. And I thought, well, maybe my thyroid's off. Maybe that's what's happening to me. Like, I honestly didn't think that it was going to be menopause.
Okay. So then you went and saw the doctor. That's how you found out?
No, he still wasn't any help.
Okay. No. Oh, wow.
He still wasn't. He just said, well, you're getting older. You're traveling a lot. You've got all this stress. Like, he was no help whatsoever. And then I finally thought, oh, I better call my mom. To see what her symptoms were like. And so I called my mom, and her response was, oh, honey, you're there. This is what's happening. So I said, well, tell me. And a lot of doctors will say, well, your menopause will be similar to your mom's menopause.
Okay.
Not always. Not always. It can be very different. It can be different depending on whether you've had children or not. It can also be different based on lifestyle. So you can't just assume that your menopause is going to be the same. Now, my mom was hit pretty hard with menopause as well, so there was a lot of similarities. Actually, very interesting fact that I actually just learned recently because I was doing some research is women who go through in vitro fertilization will typically start their menopause within 7 to 10 years of their in vitro treatment.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened to me because I'd gone through an IVF treatment. And sure enough, 7 years later, boom.
Wow, I had no idea. And it is nowadays, it's very common to have IVF. And,
exactly. Yeah, so this is something that women have to be aware of. A client that I was working with recently, she had gone through IVF, and she's kind of not at that menopause age, but she most certainly is feeling the symptoms. And I asked her, I said, what's the time period? And
she's 7 to 8 years. So how do you help your clients navigate through this transition?
So really one of the very first things that I do with my clients, I do want to understand how they're eating. I want to understand their lifestyle, like how are they sleeping? What are their moods? I even ask them what their bowel movements are.
Yes.
It's important to know whether they're having a regular bowel movement and what their activities are, like what type of exercise they might be doing. And so I start there and I analyze that I get them to record all of that for 7 days. And I analyze that. But then I also really want to understand who this woman is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is her life like? What is her work life? Is she still working? What was her life like before? Has she had issues with weight previously? Because of course everybody blames the weight on menopause, but then women have potentially had weight issues in the past where they've struggled. And what her relationship is like with food. Is it an emotional source?
Could it also be connected to mindset? Do you think it's mindset?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And unfortunately, and some women don't like this when I say this, but I love being in menopause. I absolutely love being in menopause. And some women who are still struggling kind of give me a really dirty look and think, what's wrong with you?
I feel like being aware and conscious of your choices can make a big difference. And I feel like that's what you have done.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So for me, I really had to take a look at my overall lifestyle. I mean, I ended up leaving the corporate world, but my body really broke down and I wasn't sure, like, was it lifestyle? Was it menopause? Like, what was happening? So mindset is part of it. I was determined that I wasn't going to accept that narrative that menopause is awful and every year that you get older is worse and worse. And I'm just like, no, I'm changing that trend. I don't want to. I don't want to view life that way. So that, and of course, that's what I want to understand with women as well too. And some women, they get so frustrated or feel somewhat defeated because they haven't had any answers from different practitioners maybe they're working with. And I don't want to be negative with the medical system, but the medical system views menopause in one way based on what they learned in school, right? And
do you think your soul was calling you when you've left the corporate world, like this is the time and I've got to transition?
Yes. So I think that there was something to that, whatever people believe, but I do believe that there is a higher power in the universe. And I call my higher power God. And I kept saying, God, please, like, tell me what I should be doing. Like, make it really blatant. You have to shout it out to me so that I really hear it. And I was standing in my kitchen one day and all of a sudden, like, the word nutrition just came out of my mouth. And I just like, wow, yeah, I love nutrition. So I started to check into dietitian, nutrition, like what do I want to do? Because dietitians and nutritionists are different. The way we learn is different. And so, yeah, once I started going down that path of researching, I was still working in the corporate world and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get myself set up. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to become a holistic nutritionist.
Wow.
And
so how does diet play a role in life? Like you just mentioned that you were a certified nutritionist. So
diet is a very big part. And unfortunately, this isn't talked about a lot of times with women when it comes to menopause. So sometimes I'm the bearer of bad news, cutting out sugar, cutting out refined food, even sometimes cutting out things like coffee or alcohol can make a big difference. And for some people, that's really hard to make those changes. But I tell people, like, it's not forever. The things that I had to cut out for a period of time, I guess for me, when I left the corporate world, I was really sick. My body had had enough. It couldn't support me anymore. And I was actually, most people don't believe this to look at me now, but I was actually in pain 24/7. Everything hurt. And no matter how healthy I ate, my digestive system was disrupted. I honestly felt that I had an undiagnosed autoimmune disease. And I thought that I was just heading down the path of being in pain for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So, and I was only 52 at the time. And I just thought to myself, this can't be my journey.
Yes.
I'm not willing to accept that this is my journey. And so for me, I wanted to overturn everything. I wanted to look under every rock to see if there was a solution so that I could get my energy back and feel good again. And I can honestly say I just turned 63, and I can honestly say
you don't look 63 at all.
Thank you.
And I've also heard that you were into weight training and you won an award. So I would love to hear that story if you can share with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny why I did the bodybuilding competition. I actually wanted to do a boudoir shoot for my 50th birthday.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, well, I want to have a good
nice
body.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had done a bodybuilding competition a number of years earlier. And I was amazed at watching her body transform. So,
and this was after menopause.
This was kind of like in the
process.
In the process of it.
Okay.
And so I decided, okay, I'll do the bodybuilding competition. I'll be in great shape to do the boudoir shoot.
Yes.
And it was while I was doing the bodybuilding competition, that's when the nutrition thing came to me. But 8 months of preparation. Working out 5 days a week. I was working full time. My whole life beyond work was solely focused on my bodybuilding. So working out, cooking all my meals, eating all my meals. I had to eat
to be disciplined.
Exactly, extremely disciplined. And posing, I had to practice to learn how to pose properly. So my life was consumed for 8 months, and I only started working out at age 45, lifting weights. So I hadn't been doing it all that long. And I ended up winning 3rd place, which I'm pretty proud of. I was 51.
Would you like to mention what kind of contest was it?
So it was a bodybuilding competition that was held in Kelowna. And gosh, I think it might have been called the BCAA, something like that. I can't remember now, because that was like 13 years ago, 11 years ago. But I was in the over 35 category. And so I was competing against all the other women. And it was such a fun day. I had to have all my suit and all my jewelry and everything, got my hair done, all that kind of stuff.
And then you started your career in being a nutritionist and
so as I mentioned, my body broke down. So probably the bodybuilding competition was kind of like the last straw that my body was just saying, okay,
this is
corporate stress, travel, all that kind of stuff, bodybuilding competition, everything just accumulated. And that's when my body really started to break down. So I quit the corporate world. I walked into my boss's office and I said, I'm resigning.
You've got to make that choice for yourself. You know, you've got to take action if you want this not to be your life, or the life that you're living, you're not liking it. You've got to make a choice and go a different way. You know, that otherwise you're stuck in a loop, and then you are blaming your circumstances for that.
That's exactly it. And there's never a perfect time. So many people say, well, I'll do it when. And I started saying that, but I was sitting at my desk, sick, miserable, unhappy. I wasn't performing to the level that I thought I should be with my employer. So I just said, that's it. This is the sign. This is the sign to leave. Why get sicker? Why be more unhappy? And so then enrolled in school and started studies.
So what is the first symptoms that women experience even before missing their period?
Wow, it can be so many different things. And sometimes, for me, the symptoms were very subtle. And that sometimes happens to women, that the symptoms are so subtle, you don't even really realize you're in perimenopause. And again, when I was going through it, it wasn't talked about. So the last thing on my mind when it started to happen would be that I was starting this menopause transition. So for some women, it can be slight sleep disturbances, like they don't sleep as well. For other women, it can be their weight is changing and the things that they've done in the past to maintain their weight isn't working anymore. For some women, it can be slight hot flashes coming on. Sometimes it can be a change in like your skin, like maybe it becomes a little more dry, or you're seeing your hair change. Like,
oh, wow.
Every woman is so unique because of her hormonal makeup that every woman's experience can be completely different. So when you're asking a girlfriend, oh, I'm going through this, she might say, well, I'm not experiencing that.
Okay. So just being conscious and aware of like if something is different, and then kind of analyzing it. And
exactly.
Then, so if the doctor won't help you, how would you help yourself?
What do you do?
What is,
So I think the best thing for women to know is that basically any time after age 40, that transition can start to happen. For some women, it will start earlier. It can happen in their late 30s or early 30s. And also, so that's natural menopause, but also it can be induced. Women who go through cancer treatment will be suddenly put into menopause. And then also if women have a surgery to remove their reproductive parts, they're going into menopause as well too. But the natural menopause, just based on age, you can just start to say to yourself, okay, I'm 40. Are some of the things that I'm experiencing, are they related to perimenopause?
And there's also perimenopause, right? Before it actually starts there.
Exactly. So there's premenopause, which pre is like you're still in your reproductive years. Then there's peri, so that's the next stage before menopause. Then there's menopause. Then there's postmenopause.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long does the symptoms stay once the menopause starts? Like after, like you said, after menopause. How does
So that's where, again, every woman is different, and that's where lifestyle and a lot of women, when they go through menopause, they also start to have thyroid issues. So sometimes what they're experiencing is actually thyroid issues, and it's not menopause symptoms. And sometimes it does get missed.
Because it's almost the same symptoms.
It can be very similar symptoms. So when I hear a woman say that, well, I've been going through menopause for 10 years, it's like, okay, menopause shouldn't be 10 years long. There's something going on. So it really should only be a couple of years, and then you're postmenopause. Like once I healed my body, and at the same time I actually made my menopause symptoms go away when I healed my body. So I haven't had menopause symptoms since I was about 55. So mine was really, and again, if I'd known what was going on, mine was about 7 years. But part of that time, I had no idea what was going on with me, right?
So like in this modern world, like how does people cope with these symptoms, and like you said, like going 9 to 5, doing all these household activities, taking care of your family, and how do they cope? Like you must have been talking to clients and have their experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Well, aside from the coaching that I do around changing their nutrition and adding in some new lifestyle factors, like there's a lot of stuff out there now. There is clothing that, like for example, pajamas that women can wear, that if you're having night sweats, they don't hold in the moisture. They even have bed sheets now that help you feel cooler when you're having night sweats. If you've ever seen people wear these things around their neck that almost look like a set of headphones, it's actually a fan.
Oh, wow.
That you plug in and it blows on you.
Wow, when you have the hot flashes, just turn it on.
Exactly. A friend of mine has one and she's like, it's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So there's things like that.
So we now have a lot of gadgets.
There's people that are definitely benefiting off of women going into menopause. So there are gadgets out there. But I think one of the most important things for women to understand is up to that point, who have they put first? They've probably put their children first if they have children, or if they've been career focused, that's been their main focus. I mean, that's who I was, right? Very focused on my career. Or if they have a partner, focused on their partner. Women always tend to put themselves last, right? That's You're true. A mom. Yes. Do you fight through when you're not feeling well to look after everybody?
Of course, yeah, that's always the case. Balancing, and also like we work, even if not in the corporate world, but we still have to-do lists. We still have to take care of family. We still have to make dinner. Exactly. When my son has a bad time and has school, so I can understand that.
Yeah. So that's what I encourage women to do, is to make sure that they just say, look, I need some time to myself. I need some time to rest, or get the kids involved. I learned at a very young age, because my parents were self-employed. I had to learn how to cook and clean house. Like that was just one of the rules in our house, right? Yes. And my stepson, when he was young, I would get him to do things. And I think that it's great to get them involved, but I think it's also okay to have this discussion, whether it's boys or girls, of this is something that women transition through, because they could eventually have a relationship with somebody that is going through menopause, or if it's a girl, she's going to go through menopause. So talk about these things. It's not taboo.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, how can families help a woman who's going through menopause? And like you said, I think a woman should herself be aware, right? Like, okay, this is it, and have an open chat. What do you think, right?
Exactly. And one thing I want to mention is sometimes doctors will dismiss certain symptoms. One of the most common things that a lot of women are put on when they're in perimenopause is antidepressants, because they're not relating the symptoms to perimenopause. So they're putting them on antidepressants, which can sometimes be a really slippery slope, right? And as the symptoms get worse, because the antidepressants are
not going to help.
Exactly. So then they end up on another medication. I see by the time a lot of women come to me, they're on numerous medications. And it's unfortunate, because starting to roll that back.
So like how would they, like, that's my question, is like, okay, suppose this woman is going through and she's not aware, like, how to seek help. So there are coaches and mentors. What would your advice be to women who are seeking help?
Right. So I sometimes say that Google is my nemesis. Because it's hard to discern what information is accurate and what isn't. So, and it does take a level of trust. I mean, this is it's a very major transition in a woman's life. So you really need to trust who you're either reading their content or working with. What I would recommend to most women is go out and buy a book. Because most people who have published, and if it says like doctor or naturopath or something like that.
Would you say few books for them to read about?
There's one doctor, and she's written a couple of books, but she's somebody who I just feel she's a real expert when it comes to women's health. And she is a naturopathic doctor, but she's also not beyond using traditional medicine, like pharmaceutical medicine. But her name is Dr. Tori Hudson. And she's got excellent content. So she would be one of the main people that I would recommend. There's people out there that are going to say, well, why aren't you talking about this doctor or this doctor? There's been a real move lately for doctors promoting hormone therapy. And
so I did some research on hormone therapy, and it's like 20 to 30% of women opt for hormone therapy, and that's according to the report from U.S. Preventive Services Task Force. So like so many women use hormone therapy. So what is the alternative like?
So one of the things that I feel that's important is to understand a woman's philosophies on her health, her philosophies on pharmaceuticals. But also it's important to understand what her family history is, her health history with her mom. Is there breast cancer? Is there different cardiovascular diseases within the family? So there is another doctor that I've read one of her books, and I'm in the process of reading another, is Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She wrote a book called The XX Brain, so XX chromosome, and women's propensity to be more susceptible to Alzheimer's disease than men. And she actually has some really great, they're just little questionnaires in her book that you can sort of help yourself to decide whether hormone therapy is the right thing for you. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is there's different types of hormone therapy. So there's the traditional hormone therapy that's been around since the, I think, late 60s. That actually comes from pregnant mares, pregnant horses. And they take that hormone and they make a type of estrogen for women that women take, or it can be a patch. And a lot of women are opposed to that for various reasons. Not liking the fact that the horses are...
What are the side effects for these kind of therapies?
You know, that's always difficult because again, every woman's very unique. And there were studies that were done that showed that this hormone therapy could be very detrimental health-wise. Now they've redone studies and they're saying that it isn't detrimental. So again, I think it's something where a woman should have a discussion with somebody who's very open-minded. My doctor was very forceful, telling me I wouldn't be able to function without hormone therapy. And I did the compounded bioidentical, which is like the most I guess personalized form. So there's regular hormone therapy, then there's bioidentical, then there's compound bioidentical, which is they take compounds out of certain plants that sort of mimic female hormones. But for me, hormone therapy made me feel worse. And it only made sense because I was never able to get pregnant. I evidently had hormonal issues, right? So I think this is where it's important for women to be able to have a very open discussion with somebody who doesn't sort of sway one way or the other.
A certain program.
And that's me. Like, I want to talk to somebody to really understand what they're feeling and give them guidance so that they can make that decision and not feel bad about it.
And so what are the alternatives that you use and how do you help them with transitioning?
This is a part that for me is frustrating with social media and all that kind of stuff, because I see many people saying, nutrition doesn't make a difference. And I completely disagree. Nutrition really is a very important component of how you're going to feel. If you're focusing on whole foods, like whole solid ingredients, nothing that's broken down and refined. And people often say, how do I eat healthy? And I always say, eat one ingredient foods. And people will look at me strangely and say, what do you mean? Well, broccoli is one ingredient. Chicken is one ingredient. Cauliflower. So focus on the one ingredient that's in that food and put it together and make a delicious meal. So nutrition is very important. The other part is making sure that you are taking time. Like sleep is so important. But if your sleep is being disrupted, set a little alarm and have a nap, have a 10-minute nap during the day. That might help you. Your activities that you're doing. Unfortunately, so many women, when they go into menopause, they start to put that weight on and immediately they start running or doing all this extra cardio. And they're actually working against themselves. They're putting more stress on their body. Exactly. So sometimes it's not going to make you lose any weight. So those are some of the important things that I always recommend with my clients. And in some cases, I will recommend certain supplementation as well too. Like a good multi-mineral
Yes.
is and I don't mean multivitamin, I mean multi-mineral.
Okay.
Because women are generally deficient in minerals, so they need that mineral support, especially when they're going through the transitions of menopause.
So what kind of minerals that are needed?
Yeah, so some of the important minerals, magnesium's a big one.
Yes, I take magnesium every day, although of course I'm like far away from menopause, but like even if I'm feeling a little bit cramps in my legs, I'm like magnesium, and also it helps me with my sleep.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
exactly. So magnesium's a really good one. Zinc is another good mineral to be taking that helps to support the immune system. Things like selenium and manganese and calcium, like all together, all of those minerals. So that's why I always say like a good, and no slight to anybody that buys anything at Costco, but a lot of times, cheap,
good quality. Yeah, it's
you're
not a good quality product.
Exactly. You're not necessarily getting the level of concentration in those minerals that you need. So actually, I guess this is a bit of a plug, but right now I'm actually offering a free supplementation consultation.
Nice.
That if somebody, is confused about supplementation, I'll give them 30 minutes. We'll talk about how they're feeling, and then I can provide some suggestions as to what might help them.
And prepare them. Awesome. Yeah, like according to North America Menopause Society, the average age of women to reach menopause is 51 years old, right? And about 1.3 million women in the US enter menopause annually. So you can imagine how many people are affected by this, how many women are going through this every single day. And you are doing amazing work. So how can you best prepare women to navigate through this? I know I'm asking this question again and again, but like a little more detail into this can help a women like sitting in their house right now and can help them. Yeah.
So ideally, if I could meet a woman in her 30s and start to guide her.
Okay.
I can help.
Women like me.
Exactly. I can help make menopause much easier.
Okay.
There's two really important organs in our body that are going to support us as we're going through that menopause transition. One is our liver. Okay. So it's kind of an unsung hero. Our liver has over 600 functions in our body.
Wow. I had no idea.
Okay. And when you think about, so if you drink coffee, if you eat processed food, if you drink alcohol, the things we put on our body, perfume, makeup, all of those have certain levels of toxicity or certain components that our liver has to process and break down. It's our filtration system. It filters our blood, right? So I always tell women, you want to do things to support your liver.
Yeah.
And to tell a woman that's in her 30s that these are the things, it's like we feel invincible.
Yes.
We feel absolutely invincible in our 30s, right? And we don't realize till we hit that sort of later 40s, 50s, it's like, oh boy.
What has happened? Yeah, what did I do wrong?
Exactly. So the liver is one. And that's where the cruciferous vegetables, so like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, all those things support the liver. Okay. And the reason the liver is important is because it produces cholesterol that ends up producing sex hormones, okay? But it also breaks down the hormones. Wow. So it's got a very important role.
Yeah.
The second set of organs that are really important, that again are sort of unsung heroes, are our adrenal glands.
Okay.
So the adrenal glands, for a woman who's still of child-producing age, the adrenal glands do produce certain hormones at small levels. Most of our sex hormones, if we're in childbearing age, are produced by our ovaries. Okay? But then the ovaries eventually stop producing those hormones. So what takes over? Our adrenal glands take over.
Okay.
Now, our adrenal glands also support us in the fight or flight situation, like if we're in danger. They support us when we're stressed out. So when you think again about a woman in her 40s,
that's why they were stressed out. They're yeah, okay. Makes
so
sense
our
now.
adrenal glands, suddenly it's like they're taking over. They're having to produce all of these hormones, not at the same levels that the ovaries did, but they still have to produce these hormones. Then on top of that, they have to produce your stress hormone, your norepinephrine, so the hormone that helps you in the case of danger. So I tell women, like, okay, those late nights of having fun and stuff like that, that stresses out your adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands, they love routine.
Okay.
They love when you eat at the same time every day. They love when you get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time. Our adrenal glands are the most, like, they're that most boring person. That's our adrenal glands. They love routine. They love everything to be the same. That's what allows them to function well. So, yeah. So
that helped you, the lifestyle changes has helped you through this menopause, and you love it, that you said how to love your menopause.
Exactly.
Right? So
what's interesting in North American society, menopause is looked upon as very negative. And actually what I found really interesting when I originally started this journey of learning about menopause was in ancient cultures, menopause is actually seen as a sign of wisdom and strength. So when you think about a woman who's having her monthly period, a lot of times she's losing a lot of energy around that, right? And when you go into menopause, well, you're no longer losing that energy. You're holding that energy. In some cultures, a woman can't become a shaman until after menopause.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly.
How?
Yeah. So it's unfortunate that in North America, menopause has always been such a negative, because in other countries, or like I say, ancient cultures, it's actually been a sign of a woman of power or of great wisdom. Our First Nations people in Canada, they see menopause and a woman in menopause as being an elder, being somebody that you turn to. Yeah.
So Connie, how does menopause affect intimacy for your sex life?
Yeah, that's an important one, and that one's very rarely talked about, especially in North America, right? We don't talk about sex. And that was a journey that I had to discover myself, right? As to how I could still enjoy sex in menopause, because so many women believe that that's it, it's done, you know? And so if they're in a heterosexual relationship, their husbands feel very rejected. They don't know why their wife doesn't.
So do you feel arousal after menopause? Like, how does your body react to that?
So this is the thing, you know, men, their sex drive doesn't change a whole lot, right? I mean, it changes slightly, but not in the same way as women. For women, because we know we're not of childbearing age anymore, what we're craving now is more of that emotional intimacy, right? It's not just about the sex. We want to know we have that connection with our partner. I mean, for most women, having sex is all about safety, right? So that's a very big part of it for women, is they want, it's not just the mess around and you get aroused. It's more of
emotional connection.
Knowing that their partner is really interested in how they're feeling.
And I feel that comes from communication, because if you are going through menopause and you're not communicating with your partner, I feel that's can be a blockage, and where you feel distant, right? If you
can, but here's the thing: if a woman doesn't even know, like suddenly she's having painful sex and she doesn't know why, right? And maybe she's too embarrassed to go to the doctor to say she's having painful sex. She might be talking to girlfriends. Sometimes women suffer in silence. So she doesn't want to have sex with her partner, but she doesn't know what to do. I found an amazing lubricant.
Okay.
It's absolutely amazing. It's called Sutil. I can provide you the information. I think it's Sutil, but it's an amazing lubricant. Very, very clean. It doesn't have, and that's the other thing, like you don't want to be using products that have a lot of awful ingredients in them. A lot of women as well too, sometimes they're given like estrogen suppositories to use vaginally. And for some women they can't use that because they've had estrogen issues like with cysts and you know, that type of stuff. So sometimes they're not given a solution. So that's where this lubricant, Sutil, is really, really good. Now, the other thing, a lot of single women will say, well, how do I keep myself active? Because I don't have a partner. And you know what? That's where take some time, go to a store and buy a sex toy or an apparatus because if you don't use it, you will lose it. The muscles actually start to atrophy.
Oh, wow.
And for some women, I've actually had women say to me, I feel like a virgin, like my partner can't get inside of me. And that's what happens, the muscles atrophy.
It's the vaginal dryness.
The dryness, but the vagina can also become very narrow. So using an apparatus along with the lubricant can
work wonders.
It's very true. It can work wonders. But it can be difficult to have those discussions, most definitely. Again, in North America, we're not really forward talking about sexual issues. But that's if you've got a partner, you just need to say to them, look, there's something going on with my body that I don't quite understand, and I'm not getting a lot of help, or I'm not getting a lot of solutions. So, and the interesting thing is, I did a little study about whether men, or a little survey about whether men were interested in what women experience in menopause. And women believe that they're not, but actually 89% of the men who responded to my survey said that they do want to learn. They want to know
more about about women, about menopause, and how their body reacts. That's amazing, Connie. Thank you for this information. So before we end this episode, I want to ask you this last question, is that what is a daily practice that women can do while right now they're going through their menopause, and how that can help them alleviate some of the symptoms?
Well, one of the things I would say is start your morning with water. Or even lemon water, and try to delay your coffee for at least an hour before you start your day, because coffee increases cortisol, which comes from the adrenal glands. So we're trying to be kind to the adrenal glands. Try to get in a good amount of protein in the morning. I tell all my clients, try to focus on 25 to 30 grams of protein in the morning. That's
eggs.
So my breakfasts are pretty typical. I have 2 poached eggs and some type of a ground meat. So sometimes ground turkey or ground beef, something like that. And that gives me about 30 grams of protein. That sets me up for the whole day. Make sure you have lunch. Drink enough water throughout the day, and make sure you have dinner. And the clients that I work with, and I see this as very typical, most women are starving themselves because
they're gaining the weight, so they're thinking by dieting they can help.
Well, what have we been taught? What have we been taught as women? 6 weeks to this beach body, or let's go on this 12-week program. And that is, so women have gotten into this mentality that that's what they need to do. And when I work with women, I tell them I want them to eat more, and it's kind of like, well, how can I eat more and lose weight? And it's a process.
Well, thank you, Connie. And lastly, I want you to ask for our audience where to find you. What is your website? What is your social media page?
So probably the easiest way to find me is Menopause Navigator. So if you search all one word, menopausenavigator.com, that'll lead you to my website. On social media, I'm Menopause Navigator as well. So that's the easiest way to find me. Or you can search by my name as well too.
And you coach and mentor people. What other services do you provide?
So actually one of the things, and I use myself as a guinea pig, as I did in school. I use myself as a guinea pig. And now since I've come out of school, I still do the same thing. One of the things that I think is very beneficial for women, in fact, I'm working with a client right now who wanted to get a baseline of her health.
Okay.
So I call it a health-based DNA test. It's not 23andMe or any of these other popular ones that are out there.
Okay.
This is a DNA test that's done for health purposes.
Okay.
So that allows me to see any genetic issues that might be there, or they call them genetic expressions.
Okay.
So I can guide a woman on the best way to eat and the best forms of exercise and those types of things. Even supplementation. Yeah. It'll tell me whether they need certain supplements.
Okay.
The other part that I've really gotten into is microbiome testing.
Oh, yes.
And it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. And a lot of people don't understand there's components of our microbiome that affect our hormonal health. Yeah. So that's another test that I offer. And then I also offer a test. It's called the Dutch test, but it's the exact words is dried urine testing. I'm gonna forget the whole thing, but anyway, it's a Dutch test, but it's a urine and saliva test that, again, a woman will do in her home. Then I get the results, and what that starts to show me is how her hormones are being metabolized. So a woman who maybe her mom had breast cancer might be concerned about that. I can check to see how her body's metabolizing her hormones. It also shows me how her adrenal glands are working, shows me her melatonin. It shows me all of the sex hormones.
Yeah, thank you, Connie, for all the insightful information. I had an amazing time. I learned so much that I didn't know before about hormone therapy or about microbiome and about our liver and adrenal glands. So yes, I'm really amazed by this episode. And thank you, listeners, for listening. And thank you, Connie, for coming to my podcast studio and enlightening us about this topic.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I mean, you can tell I'm passionate about it. I love talking about it.
Yes, amazing. Thank you.